activities, you will be able to chant his name, and in this way you will get an easy delivery from the path of life and death. In fact, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, he says that kleshodik taras tesham avyakta satta chetasam avyakta hi gatir dukkham dehavad biravapyate. That those who take to the worship of God in his impersonal manifestation will find the going very tough. It will be very painful. It will be a difficult path for those who worship him in the impersonal manifestation. Therefore, out of his kindness to reveal his personal form to us, he comes down as avatar. And those who are able to understand his appearance as avatar, these people do not have to come back into this world when they leave the body. So to make you understand that God has a personal aspect and he also has an impersonal aspect, we discussed yesterday. Now today we are going to do who is God. Already you had a video show on gods and demigods. Now I'll give you a small lecture on this myself, but I'll give it to you after the slideshow. The slideshow we will have will be on helping you understand Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his most magnificent incarnation. So we'll have a slideshow now. After the slideshow, I will have a lecture on gods and demigods, and then after that, I will ask for any questions from the audience in case you have many doubts, because it's a very difficult topic to swallow. Because, for example, even my father, he says, for 60 years I've been worshipping, and you say I am worshipping a demigod. So I said, I'm not telling you, this is what Bhagavad Gita says. So it's not I who am telling you something, it's what Bhagavad Gita is saying. I'm simply repeating what the Bhagavad Gita is saying. And if you doubt what I am saying from the Bhagavad Gita, you read it yourself. Yesterday I told you that if you want to read scripture, you must read scripture as it is. That is, without any distortion, without any interpretation. That's what I'm doing. I'm just quoting Bhagavad Gita as it is. If you don't believe me, you can read Bhagavad Gita as it is for yourself. You can take any edition of Bhagavad Gita. You don't have to get one from here. You take a Sanskrit English dictionary, you sit down and you read Bhagavad Gita for yourself, and you will know what it means. So now we'll have a small slideshow on Krishna, Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his most magnificent incarnation. Now what does Krishna say in the Bhagavad Gita? In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Evam parampara praptam imam rajarishyo vidu. That if you want to understand the science of self-realization, as I am telling you now in the Bhagavad Gita, you must hear it in disciplic succession as saintly kings understood it in the past. So here we have Lord Krishna, and Lord Krishna revealed this message originally, as he says in the Bhagavad Gita, to the sun god Vivishwan. He revealed it to his son Ikshvaku, and Ikshvaku revealed it to his son Manu. And in this way, we have a disciplic succession coming down from God himself. So God reveals the original message, because the message of God can be revealed only by God. It is said, Dharmam tu sakshat bhagavat pranitam. That the principles of God, of religion, are enunciated by God himself. And he reveals his message to his devotees. And in this way, this message is passed down through a chain of self-realized spiritual masters until it comes down to you. This is known as disciplic succession or parampara. So one must hear it in parampara. So today you are hearing it in parampara, but which parampara are you hearing it from? You are hearing it from the Brahma Gaudiya Sampradaya. That in the beginning, Krishna related this knowledge into the heart of Brahma. It is said, Tene Brahma Hridaya Adi Kavayo, that the first message that was given by Lord Krishna was given into the heart of Lord Brahma. And Brahma in turn revealed this knowledge to his son Narad Muni. And Narad Muni in turn revealed it to his disciple Vyasadeva. Vyasadeva in turn revealed it to Madhvacharya. And Madhvacharya revealed it in turn to his disciples. And it has come down by disciplic succession through his divine grace, A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada, and through my spiritual master, his divine grace, Srila Kirtananand Swami Bhaktipad. The first thing we have to understand about Krishna is that Krishna is not a mythological character. This is a very, very important point. Because very often when people talk about Krishna, they say, oh, you mean the character from Indian myths and legends. Now Krishna is not a myth, Krishna is not a legend. He is not the product of somebody's imagination. Of course, nowadays we are fed on a lot of stuff like Superman and Batman and He-Man and Masters of the Universe. But one must never imagine that just because Krishna's activities are super normal, he fits into the characteristics of comic strip heroes. that he is an imaginary character or a literary figure or a figure of myth and imagination. Krishna is a genuine historical personality. And this genuine historical personality has left behind archaeological evidence to show that he actually functioned and behaved here on earth like a human being. And recently evidence for this has been obtained in the search for the lost city of Dwarka. That was the city which Krishna ruled. Now in this search for the lost city of Dwarka, we have evidence of archaeologists who declare that it cannot but be Krishna's Dwarka. These cuttings are from the Illustrated Weekly of India, which featured a story on the archaeological expedition going on in Dwarka. So Krishna actually did exist 5,000 years ago. And not only did he exist, he has left archaeological evidence of his being here on this earth. So also the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Never imagine that this is a myth or a legend, because the battlefield of Kurukshetra actually did exist. And one of the biggest wars in recorded human history took place on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. And in fact, the battlefield of Kurukshetra is still existing today. Kurukshetra is existing north of Delhi. And a Russian scientist, who is not a devotee of Lord Krishna, who is a scientist, went to this battlefield of Kurukshetra and he unearthed a human skull. This human skull he took back with him to Russia. And in Russia, Professor Gorbowski, he carbon dated that skull. And he found that that skull belonged to a human being who died 5,000 years ago. That skull was 5,000 years old. That is about precisely the date of the battle of Kurukshetra. Furthermore, he also discovered that the skull emitted radiation, as if the person had died in a radioactive holocaust, as if he had died in a nuclear explosion. And if you turn to the Mahabharata today, in the Mahabharata there is a very specific verse which describes the release of the Brahmastra, which can be compared to a nuclear weapon. And the release of this nuclear weapon, you can see, is described in great detail. The mushroom cloud is described. Now the mushroom cloud was unknown to human beings until 1940s, when they burst the first atom bomb over Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Before that, nobody knew that an atomic explosion results in a mushroom cloud. But in the Mahabharata, which was put down 5,000 years ago, the mushroom cloud of the nuclear explosion is clearly described. Furthermore, the Mahabharata describes the radiation fallout from a nuclear explosion. It describes the nuclear winter that follows the explosion. It describes the effect of radiation on the survivors of that explosion. So 5,000 years ago, before anyone could imagine anything about nuclear warfare, we have evidence in the Mahabharata that a nuclear war did take place. Furthermore, in addition to all this, you also have evidence. As I showed you, this Russian scientist who took the skull has carbon dated that skull to the time of the battlefield of Kurukshetra 5,000 years ago. And this is the skull of a man who has died in a nuclear explosion. So this is to show you that Krishna is an actual personality, that the Mahabharata talks about historical events, and the battlefield of Kurukshetra actually took place. And so did the conversation between Krishna and Arjuna, which we are going to follow in the next 7 days. That is the Bhagavad Gita. Now if you want to understand the Bhagavad Gita, you must understand the Bhagavad Gita as it is meant to be understood. That means you must understand it in the spirit in which it is meant to be understood. If you try to understand the Bhagavad Gita according to your own philosophy, if you try to fit in your own philosophy into the Bhagavad Gita, then you will remain in darkness. But if you want to take the Bhagavad Gita in the spirit in which it was written, if you want to take the original message of the Bhagavad Gita by understanding what he meant to say, then you must learn to look at the speaker of the Bhagavad Gita with the right vision. If you don't learn to look at the speaker of the Bhagavad Gita with the right vision, you will never ever understand Bhagavad Gita. Because Bhagavad Gita is not a book which is meant for pop philosophy to be quoted on the cocktail party circuit. The Bhagavad Gita is a book about devotion to God. And the speaker of the Bhagavad Gita is declared to be God throughout the Bhagavad Gita. So, you must learn to look at the speaker of the Bhagavad Gita with right vision. And what do I mean by looking at the Bhagavad Gita, the speaker of the Bhagavad Gita with right vision? That means you must look at him as Arjuna looked at him. And Arjuna, how did Arjuna look at him? Arjuna accepted him as God. Arjuna says in the Bhagavad Gita, he says, Param Brahma, Param Dhama, Pavitram, Paramam Bhavan, Purusham, Shashvatam, Divyam, Adi Devam, Ajam Vibhum. He says, I accept you as the Supreme Lord. And after accepting him as the Supreme Lord, then the Lord reveals to him the message of the Bhagavad Gita. So if you want to understand the Bhagavad Gita, at least theoretically, even if you don't have a practical realization that Krishna is God, at least theoretically you must accept Krishna as God, otherwise you will not have any hope of understanding the Bhagavad Gita. Now, as I have explained, God is understood in 3 stages. It has been said, Vadanti tat tattva vidas tattvam yajnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagwan iti shabdyate. That God is understood in 3 stages. He is understood by the Jnani as Brahman. He is understood by the Yogi as Paramatma. And he is understood by the devotee as Bhagwan. As I pointed out yesterday, just like when you see the sunshine entering the room, you may say the sun has entered the room, but in actual fact, the sun has only entered the room as sunshine. So also when you realize Brahman, sometimes you may feel that you have realized God. But in actual fact, when you realize Brahman, you have realized the all-pervading effulgence of the Lord, which is known as Brahman. This is the realization of the Jnani. The yogi who meditates on the Lord seated in the heart, eventually sees the form of the Lord represented in the heart, just like you might see the reflection of the sun in a mirror. And by seeing the reflection of the sun in the mirror, you get to see a localized representation of the sun. So also the yogi who meditates on the Lord in the heart eventually begins to see Paramatma, the form of the Lord seated in the heart. But when you look into the sky and you see the sun shining in all its glory as the source of the Paramatma and the source of the Brahman, then you understand that Bhagwan is the source of Paramatma, Bhagwan is the source of Brahman, and actually Bhagwan, that is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the source of the localized representation and the all-pervading energy of the Lord. Now, how do we understand Bhagwan? When he comes as avatar, we can understand Bhagwan. But as I have told you, to understand avatar, we have very strict criteria for identifying an avatar. Because tomorrow anybody will claim to be avatar. After you learn a little bit about Bhagavad Gita, you might be surprised that some people might come up to you and tell you that, oh, I am Bhagwan, I am avatar, please worship me. So we should know how to differentiate between a genuine avatar and a hoaxer or trickster. So first of all, we judge Krishna also by the same criteria. Now Krishna is mentioned in all the scriptures as God. In the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna tells Krishna, he says, Param Brahma, Param Dhama, Pavitram, Paramam Bhavam, Purusham, Shashvatam, Divyam, Adi Devam, Ajam Vibhum. Now you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, you are the original person, you are the primal, the original personality of Godhead. And then he says, in case you might think that because Krishna is a friend of God, he is trying to promote him. That is, Krishna is trying to win votes for, Arjuna is trying to win votes for Krishna as God because he is his friend. So he clarifies later on, he says, Ahustvam Rishyo Sarve Deva Rishi Naradastatha Asita Devala Vyasa Swayam Chaiva Bravishime. It's not only I who is declaring you as God, but all the great spiritual personalities existing at this time have all accepted you as God. It's also mentioned in the Brahma Samhita that Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadiradir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. The second point is that it's only the genuine avatar who is able to reveal his cosmic universal form. Krishna says in the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, I am the basis of the universal form which displays endless variety through repeated creation, maintenance and destruction of the planetary systems. So this form can only be revealed by Lord Krishna himself. It can only be revealed by a genuine avatar. A yogi or a hypnotist might be able to help you see a form as Krishna or Ram or some other form. But it's only the genuine avatar who can make you see this cosmic manifestation. So this is the second test of avatar. One is whether he is mentioned in scripture before his appearance, and second is whether he is able to reveal his cosmic universal form. Krishna has been accepted, as I pointed out, ahustam rishyo sarve deva rishi naradas tatha. That all spiritual personalities at that time, all of them accepted Krishna as God. Unanimously, all spiritual personalities accepted Krishna as the supreme personality of Godhead. So you have Vyasdev, you have Narad Muni, and in later times you have all great personalities like Madhvacharya, Ramanujacharya. You have all the demigods in the different scriptures, all of them declaring Krishna as the supreme personality of Godhead. Now when we talk about God, we should understand that there is only one God. We are not talking about different gods or separate gods. There is only one God. And we know Him by different names. In fact, in the Rig Veda it has been said, Ekam Sat Vipra Bahuda Vadanti. That there is only one God, but the learned know Him by different names. So we may know Him as Yahweh, we know Him as Jehovah, we may know Him as Krishna, or we may know Him as Allah. But it's actually originally the same God. Of course, those who are in knowledge may worship Him in His personal aspect, but those who are not in knowledge may worship Him in His impersonal aspect. Both of them are equally valid. It is equally valid to worship God in His impersonal aspect as it is valid to worship Him in His personal aspect. The only thing is that when you worship Him in His personal aspect, the path of God realization becomes a simpler and easier path for you. Now, this is further proof that Krishna is God, because by following the principles of Bhakti Yoga, by following the principles of Bhakti Yoga as mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam, you have people receiving the same spiritual benefit in a very short time, regardless of what background they come from, regardless of their social, economic, cultural, ethnic, linguistic background. Simply by worshipping Lord Krishna, people all over the world have got the same result. That is detachment from the material world and spiritual knowledge. And all this in a very, very short time. So this is further evidence that when you follow a spiritual path which is genuine, you get a definite specific result in a short period of time. Now we should learn to differentiate between Krishna and the demigods. We'll speak more about this later. But the demigods are the controllers of different departments in the material world, whereas Krishna is the supreme lord of everything. So for example, you may have Saraswati who is in charge of knowledge, you may have Indra who is in charge of heavenly delights, you may have Durga who is in charge of material creation. So by worshipping Saraswati, you may get a lot of knowledge. If by worshipping Indra, you may get heavenly delights. By worshipping Durga, you may get a beautiful spouse or a handsome husband. But eventually, in the end, what happens? Death will take away this knowledge from you. Death will take away your heavenly delights. Death will take your spouse away from you. So in fact, it has been said that it is men of small intelligence who seek favor from the demigods and obtain their desires, because they are limited and temporary and taken away at death. But even these benefits that are given by the demigods are actually bestowed and sanctioned by the Supreme Lord alone. Sometimes people are confused about the position of Lord Shiva, because sometimes Shiva is referred to by people as a demigod, sometimes he is referred to as the Supreme Lord. But actually Shiva is Mahadev, that means he is the chief of all the demigods. And besides being chief of the demigods, he occupies a unique position because he is the greatest devotee of Lord Krishna. He is Param Vaishnav. All demigods are devotees of Lord Krishna, but Lord Shiva, being a Mahadev, is a supreme devotee of Lord Krishna. So it's very, very difficult for people who have been worshipping Shiva as Supreme Personality to understand that Krishna or Vishnu is the Supreme Personality. In fact, recently when Ramayana was shown on TV, there was a community known as the Lingayat who worshipped Shiva as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who went to the Supreme Court and they brought about a stay order against the showing of Ramayana. And why did they bring about a stay order? They said that all our lives and for generations we have been worshipping Lord Shiva as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and now these people have the cheek to show Lord Shiva bowing down and worshipping Ram or Vishnu. So this is actually an affront to us. We cannot tolerate it. Therefore, since it hurts our religious sensibilities, you must have a stay on the showing of Ramayana, and you cannot show this serial on television. So what happened? So when they asked for the stay order, what the judges in the Supreme Court did was that they went through all the literature regarding Lord Shiva and the literature regarding Lord Ram and Lord Krishna. And what was their learned conclusion? The learned conclusion of these judges was that after reading all the Hindu scriptures, that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, Ram are the manifestations of Vishnu, who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Shiva is the greatest devotee of Lord Vishnu or the greatest devotee of Lord Ram, and he is Mahadev. That means he does not occupy the same position as Lord Ram. Therefore, it is perfectly alright to show Lord Shiva offering respects and offering devotion to Lord Ram, because Lord Ram is in fact, like Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whereas Lord Shiva is not. And therefore, they vacated the stay and they allowed Ramayana to be shown on TV. So tomorrow, if you should meet any of your friends who insist that Shiva is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, you better tell them that even if they don't accept scripture, they better accept the ruling of the Supreme Court of India. Sometimes people imagine that Krishna, because he revealed his manifestation on the battlefield as a four-armed Vishnu, that Krishna is actually an incarnation of Vishnu. But in actual fact, not only is he an incarnation of Vishnu, Krishna is actually the source of Vishnu. Please understand carefully what I am saying. That not only is Lord Krishna an incarnation of Vishnu, he is also the source of Mahavishnu. In fact, it has been said in the Srimad Bhagavatam that ete chaunsa kala pumsa krishnastu bhagwan swayam indrari vyakulam loke mridayante yuge yuge. That all other incarnations, all other forms of God are merely plenary expansions of Lord Krishna, whereas Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead from whom all come. And in fact, Vishnu, Mahavishnu, is arising from the original personality of Godhead, Krishna or Vasudeva. Now this is stated in all the scriptures, and in addition you have in the Srimad Bhagavatam this wonderful story where when Krishna goes to play with all the cowherd boys, Brahma steals his cowherd boys, and Krishna immediately manifests different forms as the cowherd boys and continues playing with them for 2 years. So when Brahma comes back after 2 years and finds that Krishna still has the cowherd boys with him, he cannot understand how the cowherd boys can be in his possession at the same time playing with him. At that time, Lord Krishna, he reveals that each of the cowherd boys is none other than himself, expanded. And he also reveals that each of these cowherd boys is none other than a Vishnu himself. So from Krishna arise so many four-handed Vishnus. That is, Krishna is the source of all creation, and from him all Vishnus arise. In fact, there are many incarnations of Krishna. But although there are many incarnations of Krishna, there are 10 famous avatars of Krishna, which are known as the Dash Avatar. Now in these 10 avatars of Krishna, Krishna comes in different forms. He comes as a fish or Matsya Avatar, he comes as a tortoise or Kurma Avatar, he comes as a boar or Varaha Avatar, he comes as a lion or Narsimha Avatar, he comes as a dwarf who expands to fill the universe like Vaman Dev, he comes as Parshuram, he comes as Ram, he comes as himself in the 8th incarnation, he comes as Buddha, and in the end he will come as Kalki. Now, why do I say he comes as himself in the 8th incarnation? This is like the story of Harun al-Rashid. Harun al-Rashid was the Caliph of Baghdad. And to see how his subjects were behaving, he used to come into the city of Baghdad in disguise. Once Harun al-Rashid would come disguised as a merchant. Once he would come disguised as a woman. Once he would come disguised as a soldier. And once Harun al-Rashid, he came as himself. But since nobody had seen Harun al-Rashid, the Caliph of Baghdad, in close quarters, everybody accepted him as just another person. So also Krishna comes in different incarnations at different times. But in the 8th incarnation, he comes in his original form. And when he comes in his original form, still people understand him mistakenly to be an ordinary person. In actual fact, it is said Krishnastu Bhagwan Swayam, he is actually the source of all incarnations. It's not that other incarnations are not powerful, it is just that he is the original candle from which all other candles are lit. So from Krishna come the Mahavishnu, the Vara Avatar, the other incarnations including Parshuram, and you get Rishabdev, the founder of Jainism, you get Buddha, you get Dhanvantari, you get Vedvyas, you get Parshuram, you get Vamandev, Narsimha. And he comes again as Krishna himself. And so in this way, Lord Krishna, he manifests himself all the way down until the last incarnation that presented, that is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he will incarnate in future as Lord Kalki. This is also further confirmed in the Brahma Samhita, where he says, I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who manifested himself personally as Krishna in different avatars in the form of Ram, Narsim, Vamana, who are his subjective plenary expansions. So Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's strange, but it is true. Of course, foolish people cannot understand this. In fact, it has been said in the Bhagavad Gita that avajananti mam muda manusham tanum ashritam param bhavam ajananto mama bhuta maheshwaram. They can't imagine that how is it that this dark colored boy, who's a cowherd boy playing with a flute in the hand, how could he actually be God himself? And here you see scientists, theosophists, you see artists, poets all debating that how can this character be considered as a Supreme Personality of Godhead? So Krishna says that those who are deluded by the modes of material nature will never ever understand this. Because when you are under the modes of material nature, you are controlled by Sattva Gun, that is mode of goodness, by Rajogun, that is the mode of passion, and finally by Tamagun, the mode of ignorance. And these modes of material nature act like a cloud which prevents you from seeing Krishna, the original Supreme Personality of Godhead, in his form as avatar. And in fact, only when you transcend these modes of material nature, then you can understand God as he is. So, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the source of all incarnations. And he is not an ordinary person like us. Sometimes people imagine that, oh, Krishna, he comes in a human body like you and me, and his body is just like mine, but that's not true. According to the scripture, it has been said in the Kurma Purana, Deha Dehi Vibedyoyam Neshwara Vidyate Kvachit, that there is no difference between God and there is no difference between God's body. Because God is non-different from his body, he is non-different from his name. Because all these are complete and transcendental. In fact, Krishna's body has been declared to be Satchit Ananda Vigraha. It is full of eternity, knowledge and bliss. In fact, our body is not eternity, knowledge and bliss. Our body is temporary. It is full of ignorance and it is the cause of all our misery. But God's body is full of eternity, knowledge and bliss. This is the nature of God. It has been mentioned in the Gopal Tapani Upanishad. Om Shri Krishnaya Nama, it says. And further on it says in the Gopal Tapani Upanishad that Om Satchidananda Rupaya Krishnaya Krishtakarene Namo Vedanta Vedaya Guruve Buddhi Sakshine. So it says in the Gopal Tapani Upanishad that Om Satchid Ananda Rupaya, that means, O Lord Krishna, whose body is full of eternity, knowledge and bliss. That means whose body is not like yours and mine. And why do I say his body is not like yours and mine? You can see in this pastime where he reveals how his body is not like yours and mine. In this pastime we see that Yashoda, his mother, has been told by Balram and the other boys that Krishna has been eating dirt. So because she feels that Krishna is eating dirt, she wants to check. And when she asks Krishna, Krishna says, no, I haven't eaten dirt, but if you want to check, you can look inside my mouth. So the mother looks inside the child's mouth. And when she looks inside the child's mouth, what does she see? When she looks inside the child's mouth, she sees inside his mouth the whole of creation. And in the whole creation that she sees inside his mouth, she sees herself looking into her son's mouth. Just try to understand what I am saying. She looks inside her son's mouth, and inside the mouth she sees the whole of creation, and in the whole of creation she sees herself looking into her son's mouth. In fact, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, he says, Maya tatam idam sarvam jagat avyakta murtina matsthani sarva bhutani na chaham tesa avastita. Krishna says, by me in my impersonal manifestation the entire world is pervaded. All living beings are in me, but I am not in them. Then immediately after that he says, Nacha matsthani sarva bhutani pashyame yogam aishwaryam bhuta brin nacha bhutasto mamatma bhuta bhavana. But just see, although all beings are in me, yet they are not in me because I am standing before you. So Krishna is standing before you and he says all beings are in me, and yet they don't appear to be in him. But when you look inside his mouth, you see all beings within him. So he says, Pashyame yogam aishwaryam, just see my mystic opulence. That although I am containing everything within me, I appear to be one among you. And only when, like Yashoda, you look into him, that you can see the entire creation and entire universe. This is the mystic opulence of Krishna. This is the mystic opulence of his body, which is not like ours. In fact, our bodies grow old, they age and they die. But Krishna's body is not like that. In fact, it has been said that Krishna is eternally youthful. Now Yauvanam cha. That although he is the oldest person, Purana Purusham, now Yauvanam cha. That he is the oldest person, yet he appears the youngest. Sometimes in the West, when people are asked to, an artist is asked to portray God, they show a very old man sitting in the clouds with a long white beard, because imagine that since God is the oldest person, he must also look very old. But in actual fact, because God's body is not like ours, he doesn't age like us. So you can see here that although Krishna is the oldest person, is eternally youthful. For example, on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, Krishna was 120 years old, yet his form was that of a 16-year-old boy. In fact, his appearance is not like ours. Therefore, it has been said that Janma Karma Chame Divyam Evam Yo Veti Tatvata Tyaktva Deham Punar Janma Naiti Mameti Soarjuna. That if you understand the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities, then on leaving this body, you do not have to appear again. Here you see that Krishna's appearance is announced from the sky when his parents are being married. And his uncle wants to kill his mother because he is afraid that Krishna will come and destroy him. And when Krishna is born, he is not born like you and me. He appears before his parents in the form of a four-handed Vishnu. And when he appears in the form of a four-handed Vishnu, his parents are so awestruck and so wonderstruck that they cannot treat him like a normal child. And they request him to take a more suitable form so that they can relish their pastimes and their association with him. So this four-handed Vishnu, he takes the form of Krishna. So you see, his birth is not like yours and mine. He appears as four-handed Vishnu and then takes the form of Lord Krishna. He is not somebody who meditates and becomes God. Even as an infant, he sucks the life out of the witch Putana and destroys and kills her. In fact, Krishna's glories will occupy so much time that if we start talking about them, we can talk about for at least a minimum of 7 days on this topic alone. But in fact, we should understand that Krishna is Bhagwan. So what is the meaning of Bhagwan? So Bhagwan means Aishwarasya Samagrasya Viryasya Yashasya Shriya Jnana Vairagyasteva Sannam Bhaga Itingana. That means Bhagwan means one who is full in the 6 opulences. He is the most beautiful. So here you have, for example, in beauty, Krishna, the word Krishna means one who is all attractive. And Krishna is so attractive that he attracts everybody to him. Nobody who's come in touch with Krishna will declare that he is unattractive. Everybody is attracted to Krishna in some way or the other. Whether human being or animal or plant or all creation is attracted to God because he is the source of all attractiveness. Sometimes people imagine that, oh, Krishna is dark in color, so how can he be beautiful? Because we have this complex that something that is dark is not beautiful. In fact, some people also say black is beautiful. I remember when Srila Prabhupada started this movement in the West, an American of African descent came to him and said that, oh, Prabhupada, I believe that Krishna is black. Is that right? Being very proud of being black himself. So Prabhupada looked at him and said, yes, Krishna is black, but he is not black like you. Because the color of Krishna is not a material color. It's a spiritual and it's a transcendental color. In fact, his color is that of a rain cloud as described in the scriptures. And here we see that although Balram is fair, his beauty cannot be compared to Lord Krishna because Krishna's color is such that it attracts the attention of practically everybody. He is also the richest person. You must be wondering who is the richest person in India. No, it's not Mithun Chakravarti, nor is it any of the highest taxpayers in India. Of course, anyway, you know that the taxpayers aren't the rich ones, they're the people who get caught. But otherwise also the richest person in India is this person. He is the Lord of the universe, represented in Tirumalai as Lord Venkateshwara. He is the richest person and he earns more in one day than most Indians make in their lifetime. In fact, when I went to Tirumalai, we saw that his turban itself was worth 60 crores, full of diamonds. And every item of jewelry that he has on him is worth hundreds and hundreds of rupees, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of rupees. So the most rich person is God, because God possesses everything. And not only does God possess everything, but when He incarnates in this world, even in the form of a murti, when Lord incarnates in the form of a murti, this is known as Archa Vigraha, or the incarnation of God in the form of a murti, He actually becomes the source of all wealth. So people come to give Him wealth, and they also get wealth in return from Him. These are the murtis at New Vrindavan, where my Guru Srila Kirtananand Swami Bhaktipad lives. That's his ashram. And Sri Radha Vrindavan Chandra are also the most opulent deities in the Western world. They are the richest people in the Western world because they are served with so much care and devotion, and so much wealth and so much effort is spent on them, that you can see that whenever Krishna incarnates in his form as the Archa Vigraha, he also manifests his opulence of wealth. Krishna is also the source of all strength. We see here Lord Krishna and Balram, even as children, they picked up the donkey Deman Dhenukasur and the other donkeys, and they picked them up by their legs and flung them into palm trees. This was their strength even as children. So they displayed their opulence of strength. And Krishna, he pulled the elephant Kuvalya Pida simply by pulling it by its tail. He dragged it just like a cat will drag a rat, by holding onto the tail of the elephant and dragging it. But in case you think that you are so strong, then try to beat this. Krishna picked up Govardhan hill on his little finger. As I pointed out, the activities of avatar are activities which cannot be imitated. So if you think you can imitate some of these activities, if you still think you can imitate some of these activities, then just try to imitate this activity. Because Krishna lifted up the whole Govardhan hill on his little finger of his left hand. So this is a manifestation of strength. It's a supernormal activity to demonstrate his opulence of strength as an avatar. He is also the most famous because Krishna is worshipped all over the world as God. Nowhere else will you find so many temples of any other God as you will find of Lord Krishna, and in the most remote places in the world. So he is also the most famous. And he is also the most knowledgeable, because even those who deny that Krishna is God, who cannot accept that Krishna is God, all of them accept that the Bhagavad Gita contains knowledge which cannot be matched in any scripture or any philosophy that has been revealed up to this point of time in human history. So Krishna is also the source of all knowledge. He is the source also of all renunciation, because we find that people are willing to give up everything. They are willing to renounce the world. They are willing to give up their wealth, their wife, their family, their children. But even a man who has renounced the world, even a sannyasi who has renounced the world, holds on to his good name. He wants to hold on to his reputation. But Krishna is not afraid of that. Krishna is willing to even give up his good name. And although Krishna has given the promise that he will not lift up a weapon to participate in the battle of Kurukshetra, when his friend and devotee Arjuna is threatened and is near death by being attacked by Bhishma Dev, Krishna breaks his promise, he breaks his word, and he picks up this chariot wheel and goes to fight. Although Arjuna requests him, let me die, but let your reputation remain. Krishna says, I don't care for my reputation, I have renounced my reputation because of my love for you. So in fact, that is the unique characteristic of Krishna, that although he is master of the world, he actually becomes servant of his devotee. That the supreme master of the universe, he takes the humble position of a charioteer simply because Arjuna, who is his friend and devotee, he is his greatest devotee, and Krishna wants to serve Arjuna. In fact, Krishna sees that he makes available himself in different forms for different pastimes of his devotees. So these activities are known as rasas. That is, he has different relationships with different people according to their propensities to have relationships with him. For example, you have the first beginning of devotional life. So in the beginning of devotional life, you have what is known as the Shantaras. In the Shantaras, what happens? You are attracted to God. You are able to recognize who is God. You are able to appreciate His glory. But yet, you are in such a stunned and peaceful mood that you are not able to perform any active service to God. You are not able to have an active relationship with God. So the Shantaras is seen in this picture in the form of the animals, the calf, the bird, the deer, and the swan, who have a relationship with Krishna, but it's not an active relationship, it's a passive worship of God. This is another example of Shantaras. Here we have an example of Dasyaras. Dasyaras means working for God as His servant. And here we see Jai and Vijay, who are working for God in the form of servants of God. And they are working as servants of God, guarding the doors to God's kingdom, which is known as Vaikuntha. And at the gates of Vaikuntha, they are preventing the entry of these four Komara brothers. Of course, more intimate than the relationship of servant is the relationship of a friend, which is known as Sakhyaras. So here we see the cowherd boys having a relationship with Krishna, which is a relationship of friendship. And of course, this is a more intimate relationship where they can actually serve Him at the same time be intimate with Him. And they can play with Him and they can enjoy with Him. And in this way they can associate with God in an atmosphere of friendship and love. They can participate with Him in unique adventures. As here He subdues the great snake Kalya, or He kills the bird Bakasur, or He kills the snake demon Agasur. But more intimate than the relationship of a friend is the relationship between the mother and the child, or the father and the child. And this is known as Vatsalya Ras. And in this Vatsalya Ras, there is an intimacy which goes beyond the intimacy of friendship, because it's an intimacy of mother and child, or father and son, has an additional protective element, an additional feeling of responsibility. And here you see that she takes great pleasure in looking after him, protecting him and feeding him. And in this way he allows her to indulge in a propensity of this Vatsalya Ras by acting as her son. And Krishna, He enacts unique pastimes for her, like the stealing of the butter, and hiding from the mother, and allowing Himself to be chased by the mother. And in fact, the Lord and Master of the universe, who cannot be achieved even by great mystic yogis and great sannyasis, allows Himself to be caught out of love for the mother. And one who cannot be obtained by years, thousands of years of penance, He allows Himself to be tied by ropes by His mother, simply because of the love that His mother has for Him. This is the unique nature of God, that He appears as avatar to give adequate opportunity for every devotee to participate in a relationship with Him according to their propensities. But of course, far more intimate and far more loving and far more intense is the relationship that occurs between man and woman. And in fact, it has been said that all of us are spiritually feminine because we are all Prakriti, and the Lord is the only male who is Purush. And here we see the intense and loving devotion of Radharani for Lord Krishna. And this relationship, which is known as the Madhurya Ras, or the conjugal relationship, is a relationship of great intimacy. And actually, when Ram appeared in the previous incarnation, he was approached by different rishis who wanted to have an intimate relationship with him. But Ram revealed to them that in this appearance or in this incarnation, he would not be able to have any further relationship with anybody else. So he revealed that when he came down in his original form as Lord Krishna, he would make himself available to have an intense loving relationship with those who are really great devotees of his. And therefore, when Krishna appears, Krishna makes himself available to the gopis in Vrindavan. But the gopis in Vrindavan are not ordinary people. Many of them are known as Rishi gopis. They are known as Rishi gopis because it is these rishis who have incarnated again in a feminine form simply so that they can have a relationship with Lord Krishna. But unfortunately, this relationship between the gopis and Lord Krishna is much misunderstood. Sometimes people feel that it's a sexual relationship that is there between Lord Krishna and the gopis. But in actual fact, there is no sexual relationship at all, because sex life exists only in the material world. Sex life only exists in a material sphere. It does not exist on the spiritual platform at all. In fact, the world is a perverted reflection of the spiritual world. Material world is a perverted reflection of the spiritual world. What is highest in the material world is the lowest in the spiritual world. And the highest pleasure in the material world is sex life. But in spiritual life, it is the lowest. It is non-existent. So this relationship between Krishna and the gopis is a non-sexual relationship. It's an intimate, loving relationship, but it's a relationship without sexuality. And it actually symbolizes the relationship between the Jivatma, or the spirit soul, and the Paramatma, or Bhagwan. The relationship between the part and the whole, and the desire for the part to become one with the whole. The desire for the part, the Jivatma, to again acquire union, or to reunite, to achieve yoga with the whole. Now we see that these gopis, they leave their homes in the middle of the night to reach Krishna. But when this meeting or the so-called Ras dance took place, we must understand that according to all the revealed scriptures, Krishna was pre-pubertal, although artists depict him as a young youth. According to the scripture, Krishna was only 8 years old at the time of the Ras Leela. That means they wanted to emphasize that Krishna was pre-pubertal, there was no question of sex life. And these gopis who came in the middle of the night to meet Lord Krishna, they did not come in their physical forms. In fact, all their physical bodies were locked up in their homes by their husbands, by their fathers, and by their children. But these gopis who came in the middle of the night to associate with 8-year-old Krishna, they came in their spiritual forms to participate in the Ras Leela with Krishna. And Krishna, the 8-year-old boy, when he meets them, he tells them to go back. He says, you've got children yourselves, you've got husbands, you've got families to look after. So you should go back. Don't waste your time with me. And in this way you will find that every devotee of Lord Krishna, at some time or the other, he gets discouraged because Krishna himself discourages him. So Krishna discourages the devotee of Krishna through his wife, or through her husband, or through her children, or through her relatives, or through society, or through his professional colleagues, to discourage him and send him back. Tell him, don't become a devotee of Krishna, you'll become a madman like all these other people. So better go back. So that's actually Krishna discouraging you, just like Krishna discourages all the gopis. But the gopis hold steadfast. They remain firm. And because they remain firm, Krishna, who has tested them and tested their sincerity, he then expands himself to have a separate Krishna for each gopi. Just like every devotee of Lord Krishna will eventually have their own Krishna to participate with in their own intimate and loving relationship. But we should remember that our position is like that of the gopis. We should not try to imitate Krishna. Here we see the story of Shankachuda. So Shankachuda tried to imitate Krishna. So what Shankachuda did, that when this Ras Leela was going on, he came into the forest in the night and he tried to carry off the gopis. And eventually he met with death. The Lord himself delivered death to him. So this happens when we try to imitate Lord Krishna and try to become like God and try to enjoy the gopis. But our position is to become like the gopis and serve the Lord with love and devotion. In fact, this activity of the gopis was much misunderstood until the appearance of somebody who could explain all this to us. And this was in the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu incarnated on this earth 500 years ago in the city of Navadvip. He revealed how all of us can actually develop an intense and loving relationship with the Lord, and we can eventually establish an intense loving relationship just like Radharani and the gopis. Because Lord Chaitanya was none other than Krishna himself come in the sentiment of Radharani. In fact, he revealed his form before Ramanand Rai, that he, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, was none other than an incarnation of Krishna and Radha. But it's not that he just revealed his form as Krishna and Radha. In the house of Advaita Acharya, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also revealed his cosmic and cosmic universal form. As I pointed out, to judge whether he is an incarnation, you should have these following points. First is he incarnated himself, and then he revealed his cosmic universal form to his devotee Advaita Acharya. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is also mentioned in the scriptures. He is mentioned in the Chaitanya Upanishad 4,500 years before his appearance. This is appeared in the Atharva Ved. Those of you who want a copy may register, and we'll arrange to get a Xerox copy of this Upanishad for you. So he revealed his cosmic universal form. And just like when the Lord appears, he doesn't appear alone. Just like when Ram appeared, he came with Sita, he came with Lakshman, and he also came with Bharat, Shatrughan, all Hanuman and so many other associates. So also when the Lord appeared, he appeared with the Pancha Tattva. That is, he appeared with his great devotees who appeared along with him. Just like Krishna appeared with Balaram, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also appeared along with Balaram in the form of Nityananda Prabhu. And he incarnated for a specific purpose. As I pointed out, every incarnation of God, he appears for a specific message or mission. And he came to show that God cannot be achieved entirely through the pursuit of knowledge or mental speculation. Here he is seen with Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, who speaks to him on Vedanta for 7 days and 7 nights. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu remains silent through 7 days and 7 nights. And then finally he shows him that you cannot achieve God through knowledge alone, you should achieve God through love. In fact, this has been said in the Bhagavad Gita. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that Naham veder na tapasa na danena na cha ijjaya. You cannot obtain me through knowledge, you cannot obtain me through austerity, you cannot obtain me through charity, nor through rituals. He says bhakti atva ananya shakya. You can only obtain me through devotion. So here he is seen talking to Prakashanand Saraswati, another famous Advait monk, to explain to him that you should not try to become God, rather you should try to serve God and learn to develop love of God. He also came to defeat the Buddhist philosophers. Of course, the original Buddhists who followed Buddha, no doubt were following the right path. But now you find that the Buddhists have actually gone away from the path of Buddha. Buddha appeared for the specific purpose of teaching people the path of non-violence. But you see that the Buddhists of today are even eating meat. And here we see the Buddhist monk who tried to poison Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by giving him forbidden items. But an eagle comes, that is Garuda comes and picks up the food and drops it on his head. And finally Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he actually arouses this monk and he gives him love of God and makes him chant the holy name of Krishna and actually makes him into a great devotee of the Lord. He also came to show that love of God has got no barriers. And it doesn't matter from which background or which religion or which faith you come from, you can become a great devotee of the Lord. And here he is seen with Haridas Thakur. Haridas Thakur was born in a Muslim family and therefore he was not accepted by any other Hindu. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu actually made him Nam Acharya. He made him the authority on the chanting of the holy names of Lord Krishna. He also came basically for showing us through example this unique message or mission that love of God can be obtained simply by chanting His holy name. It has been said in the Srimad Bhagavatam that Krishna Varnam Tvisha Krishnam Sangopangasta Parshadam Yagna Sankirtana Prayer Yajanti Sumedasa. That when Lord Krishna appears, He will appear in a color which is unlike Krishna, and He will appear with His devotees and He will incarnate for the specific purpose of showing how congregational chanting of the holy name of the Lord can actually help you obtain love of God. And all those who are intelligent in this age will worship this incarnation of God by this method. He also led the first civil disobedience movement in history. In Indian history, of course, we all know about the path of ahimsa and civil disobedience. But the original author of civil disobedience was none other than Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. Because when the Muslim Qazi prevented the chanting of the holy name of God in the streets, he led a peaceful procession which surrounded him and convinced him that the Hindu population should be permitted to freely chant the holy names of God. Actually, he is said to be the most magnificent incarnation. It is said, Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauret Vishe Nama. That you are the most magnificent incarnation because you have given us this unique mercy that simply by chanting the holy name of God, you can acquire knowledge, detachment and eventually love of God. That it doesn't matter how intelligent you are, how educated you are, or what background you come from. By the simple process of congregationally, continuously chanting the names of God, you can achieve freedom from the bondage of the material world and you can obtain bliss of spiritual union with God. And in fact, when you chant the name of God, you will realize that you are not this body, but you will realize your identity as spirit soul, and spirit soul who is eternal servant and lover of God. He showed that the power of the holy name was so great that simply by chanting the holy name, he made even the animals in the Jarikhanda forest dance with pleasure. That this holy name is equally effective not only for human beings but also for animals. He showed that by chanting of the holy names of the Lord, you can also acquire control over all your senses, and that the holy name of the Lord is more powerful even than sex desire. Here is Haridas Thakur, and to actually bring Haridas Thakur into disrepute, one Ramchandra Khan, he sends a beautiful prostitute to his cave. And this beautiful prostitute, she stands outside his cave and she exposes her body part by part and tries to seduce Haridas Thakur into having sex with her. But Haridas Thakur, who has taken shelter of the holy name of the Lord, he chants continuously for 3 days and 3 nights. And after chanting continuously for 3 days and 3 nights, this prostitute who comes to tempt him, actually herself breaks into tears. And she begins chanting the name of God herself. And finally she goes away and shaves her head. And wearing a single robe, she takes up residence in another cave, where she dedicates her life only to chanting God's names. This is to show how everybody, not only Haridas Thakur, but also you and I, can actually control sex desire simply by the simple process of chanting the holy names of God with love and with devotion. Lord Chaitanya, he also revealed his opulences. For example, he revealed the opulence of strength. Here we see the Rath Yatra cart, which could not be removed by elephants or by wrestlers. But when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came and touched his head, the entire cart started moving. This was a demonstration of his opulence of strength. He also performed many miracles, like the healing of the leper Vasudeva, who became whole again. And in this way he demonstrated so many miracles to demonstrate his presence as an avatar. But although so many of his devotees fell at his feet and they accepted him as an incarnation of God, he wanted to show that we should not call ourselves God, but we should call ourselves as servants of God. Because he knew in the future there will be many who will follow him and call themselves God. Therefore he said, don't worship me as God. I have come and I have incarnated for one purpose. And that purpose is to help you to understand, love and worship Lord Krishna. That one must worship Lord Krishna. And that there is no other way to worship God other than by chanting His holy names. It has been mentioned in the Brihad Naradiya Purana. Harer Nam eva kevalam, kalau nasti eva nasti eva nasti eva gatir anyatha. There is no other way, there is no other way, there is no other way to chant the holy name of God, to achieve spiritual progress other than by chanting the holy name, chanting the holy name, chanting the holy name. So when you chant the name of God, you will be in touch with the source of all pleasure. And by chanting the holy name of God, you will automatically acquire, without making separate endeavor, spiritual knowledge and detachment from the material world. So the message is chant. It has been mentioned in the Kali Santarana Upanishad that Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Iti Shodha Shakam Nam Kali Kalmashu Nashanam Nata Parataropaya Sarva Vedeshu Drishyate. That in these 16 words, the entire Vedic literature is compressed, that all spiritual knowledge is in these 16 words, and by chanting these 16 words you will acquire all spiritual knowledge. So the message is chant, chant and chant. So what is a mantra? A mantra means that which frees the mind. Man means mind, tra means to free. So mantra means to free the mind, and by chanting God's name we free the mind. So the message again is chant, chant and chant. Thank you. Can we have the lights on, please? Form you can get spiritual benefit. So in fact in the 12th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is asked by Arjuna. Arjuna asks Krishna that, "Oh Krishna, which is better? Is it better to worship you in your impersonal form, or is it better to worship you in your personal form? Who is considered to be superior?" He asked, "Evam satata yukta ye bhaktas tvam paryupasate ye chapya aksharam avyaktam tesham ke yoga vittama." That there are people who worship you in your personal form as Krishna, and there are people who worship you in your impersonal form. Which is better, which is higher, which is superior? This is the question that Krishna is asked by Arjuna. So what does Krishna answer Arjuna? He answers Arjuna very clearly. He says that those who worship me in my personal form, they are considered to be the highest of all. He says, "Mai aveshya manoye mam nitya yukta upasate shraddhaya paroyopetas te me yuktatno mata." That one who worships me in the form of Krishna, he is considered to be the highest of all. Of course, he mentions in the next verse that even those who worship me in the impersonal form, they are following a valid path, no doubt. But although they are following a valid path, he clarifies later that klesho diktaras tesham avyakta sakta chetasam avyakta hi gatir dukkham dehavad biravapyate. That if you are worshipping me in my impersonal form, if you are attached to the worship of me in my impersonal form, you will find it very difficult and you will find it very painful to make progress in this discipline, because you yourself are embodied. Since you yourself are embodied, to make progress in the worship of the impersonal absolute is very, very difficult. This is what Lord Krishna says. Now when we accept that we should worship God in His form, then we should know what is the form of God. Because this is the unfortunate fact that in India today, very few people are aware what is God's form. Therefore we have a lot of confusion, where people accept the demigods as Lord Krishna. They say it doesn't matter what form you worship any form, it's the same thing. This is what people are saying. That it doesn't matter what form you are worshipping, whether you worship Durga, or whether you worship Shiva, or whether you worship Ram or Krishna, it's all one and the same. But that's not what the Bhagavad Gita says. The Bhagavad Gita is very, very clear on this issue. Please read the 7th and the 9th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. In the 7th and 9th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna very clearly tells you the difference between worshipping Him and worshipping the demigods. In the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Kamaisteste ritajnana prapadyante nyadevata tam niyamam astaya prakriti niyata swaya. He says those whose hearts are distorted by material desire, they worship the different demigods according to their own rules and regulations of worship. And he says, Yo yam tanum bhakta shraddhayartham ichchati tasya chalam shraddham tam eva vidhamya aham. He says it doesn't matter what form you fix your mind on. When you fix your mind on form, I who am seated in your heart, I actually make that faith steady. So if you are wondering why you have faith in some other demigod, Krishna is revealing to you that He Himself is making your faith steady on the demigod. And further he says, Sataya Shraddhaya Yuktas Tasya Aradhanam Ichchati. That Lavate Cha Tatha Kaman Mayeva Vihitan Hitan. And by worshipping those demigods, what favors you get? Those favors are given by me alone. That means when you worship the demigods for some material benefit, actually what happens is God who is seated in your heart, He understands your desire and He sees that you obtain your desire through the demigods. But He says in the very next verse, that those who worship the demigods are of small intelligence, because the fruits that are obtained by them are limited and temporary. And because they are obtaining limited and temporary fruits, they are considered to be unintelligent. Actually, worship of God is supposed to be without any material motivation whatsoever. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu actually reveals the way. He says in his Shikshashtakam, he says, Na dhanam, na janam, na sundarim kavitam va jagdisha kamaye, mama janmani janmanishware bhavitat bhaktir ahitukitvayi. He says, I don't want wealth. I don't want beautiful women. I don't want any number of followers either. And I don't even want liberation from the cycle of birth and death. I don't mind being born again and again, provided I am always remembering and serving you. This is actually the devotion that is required from all of us. We should not ask God for wealth. We should not ask Him for beautiful women or beautiful men. We should not ask Him for any number of followers. We should not even ask Him for liberation from the cycle of birth and death. We should simply ask Him that it doesn't matter how many times we are reborn, we should always try to remember Him and serve Him throughout our lifetime. This is all that we should ask for. He also says in the Shikshashtakam that Ashli Shiva Pad Ratam Pinashtumam Adarshanam Hatam Karotuva Yatha Tathava Vidadatu Lampato Mat Prananathastu Sa Eva Napara. He says, Oh God, you shall always be my worshipful Lord, even if you treat me roughly in your embrace. It doesn't mean that because you have been worshipping God with great love and devotion, God should treat you very kindly. He may treat you roughly in His embrace. He says, you can be my Lord and treat me roughly in your embrace. He says, you can make me broken hearted by not being present before me. You might think that I am worshipping God so sincerely, why can't I see God? But He says, it doesn't matter, even if I can't see you, I don't mind. He says, you shall always be my worshipful Lord unconditionally. Without any condition I shall serve you. This is the devotion that is required to understand God. That means without any condition, even if you are treated roughly, even if you are broken hearted by His absence, without asking for wealth, beautiful women, without asking for followers, without asking for the liberation of birth and death, this is how we have to worship God. But because people cannot achieve that standard, they worship the demigods. They feel that by doing this sacrifice, they will get this in return. If they do this, then God will give them that in return. So they are trying to actually negotiate with God as if God is their order supplier, like God is their baniya. That, dear God, I'll do this for you, you do that for me. And even popular songs are based on this. I remember one famous song which went like this. That, oh God, will you buy me a Mercedes Benz? My friends all drive Porsches, I must make amends. So you're asking God for a Mercedes Benz, you're asking God for wonderful things. But instead of asking God for things, we should actually ask God that, oh God, I don't want anything from you, just help me to remember you and serve you at all times. That is the meaning of love of God. Therefore, when you worship other gods, when you worship demigods, what happens? Krishna says in the 9th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, he says, Yepi anya devata bhakta, yajante shraddhayanvita, tepi mam eva kaunteya, yajanti avidhi purvakam. That if you are worshipping other gods, even if you are worshipping full of faith, what is happening is that you are worshipping without proper understanding. That is actually meant for me and me alone. He says in the next verse, Ahami sarva yagna nam bhokta cha prabhureva cha na tu mam abhijananti tatvena tas chavanti te. That unless you understand that I am the original source of all the demigods, and I am the source from which they all come, and unless you understand I am the recipient of all sacrifices, you will fall down from your position of spiritual realization. So you have to understand that Krishna is the source of all, and to achieve Krishna you must worship Him without any material desire whatsoever. Only that is the best way you can achieve love of God, and that is the best way you can get to see Him and achieve a relationship with Him or communion with Him. And it doesn't mean that if you worship the demigods, you'll get the same result as worshipping Lord Krishna. It's not possible. If you buy a ticket to Tokyo, you can't land up in London. If you want to go to London, you require a ticket to London. If you buy a ticket to Tokyo, you go to Tokyo. This is what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. He says in the Bhagavad Gita that yanti deva vrata devan, pitran yanti pitravrata, bhutani yanti bhuteja, yanti madhyajno api mam. He says those who worship the demigods, they go to the demigods. Those who worship their ancestors, they go to their ancestors. Those who worship the ghosts, they go to the planet of the ghosts. But those who worship me, they come to me. And he says that all these places that you go to are not the same. He says, Abrahma bhuvan loka punaravartino Arjuna. That all the other places that you go to, you have to come back punaravartino. But mam upetya tu kaunteya punarjanmana vidyate. But if you come to me, from there is no return into this material world. So, if you are worshipping other demigods, then what will happen is that you may go to the planet of the demigods, but it is mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita that tetam bhuktva swargalokam vishalam shine punya martyalokam vishanti. That you may go to their planets after you've enjoyed your heavenly delights, you've exhausted your pious activities, you have to come back. Shine punya martyalokam vishanti. You come back into this material world. But one who reaches the planet of Lord Krishna, one who reaches the kingdom of Lord Krishna, he does not have to come back again into this material world. This is clearly, specifically mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita. Therefore, Krishna mentions in the second verse of the 10th chapter, he says, Name vidu suragana, prabhavam na maharishya, aham adiri devana maharishya cha sarvasha. He says, even the great demigods cannot understand me, even the great maharishis cannot understand me, because I am in fact the source of the maharishis, I am in fact the source of the demigods. So this is what Krishna is saying, that all the demigods spring from him. And by worshipping Krishna, you are not actually detracting or taking anything away from the demigod. Sometimes people come to me after the lecture and they say that, oh, all my life I've been worshipping so and so demigod, and now you are telling me I should change. But what will happen? If I do that, I'll be upsetting this demigod. He will probably take it out on me. He'll punish me for deserting him. So this is the idea some people have. But actually it is to be understood that Krishna is the root and the demigods are the leaves, the flowers and the branches. And when you water the root, automatically the leaves, the flowers and branches are all satisfied. It says in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Yatha taror mula nischanena triptayanti skanjo bhujo pashaka prano paraj yathendriyam sarva aranam achuteja. That just like when you water the root of the plant, the leaves, the flowers, the branches all get satisfied, so also when you put food in your stomach, all your limbs get nourishment. So also when you worship Lord Krishna, all the demigods automatically they get satisfied. This is what is mentioned in all the scriptures. In fact, the story of lifting Govardhan Parvat is simply to illustrate this. Because Krishna's father, Nand Maharaj, was to worship Lord Indra. So when he was to worship Lord Indra, Krishna tells him, don't worship Lord Indra, worship me in the form of Govardhan Parvat. So Nand Maharaj says, no, let's take it easy. I worship Govardhan Parvat, but I'll also worship Indra. Therefore I'll keep both happy. Therefore some people have the idea, yeah, now I've understood Krishna is Supreme Personality of Godhead, so let me worship whoever I've been worshipping before and Krishna together. So I'll hedge my bets. So whichever way it turns out, I'll still be the winner. So Krishna's father also wanted to do that. He said, okay, it's cool. Relax, Krishna. I'll worship Govardhan also and I'll worship you in the form of Govardhan and I'll worship Indra also, no problem. I'll worship them both. So Krishna tells him, don't do that. You don't have enough time. You have enough time only to perform one sacrifice. You please worship Govardhan Parvat only. So that is what his father does. That is what all the cowherds do. Cowherd boys and cowherd girls do. And what happens? Indra, who is so upset, he gets a Samvarta cloud to inundate the whole of that area with floods. So they all come running to Krishna saying that, oh Krishna, now look what's happened now. Indra is trying to drown us out. So to show them that he is the ultimate protector, he lifts up Govardhan Parvat and protects them. In fact, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that Kaunteya pratijanahi name bhaktya pranashyati. That, O son of Kunti, declare it boldly, no devotee of mine shall ever perish. So to show them that even if the demigod gets upset with you, which will never happen because all demigods are devotees of Lord Krishna. But even suppose you imagine that this will happen, Krishna will protect you. This is actually the example to illustrate this is the story of the lifting of Govardhan Parvat. This is why Lord Krishna lifts up Govardhan Parvat. So, the instruction of the Bhagavad Gita is that if you want to worship God, you can worship Him in His impersonal manifestation, that's fine. But that's a painful and difficult path. But if you want to worship God in the personal manifestation, which is simpler, easier, higher, better, then you must worship Him in the form of Krishna, or as Vishnu, or any of His other incarnations or Vishnu incarnations. You may worship Him in any of these forms. That is, for example, in Srimad Bhagavatam, there are 24 incarnations of Vishnu mentioned. So you can worship any one of these 24 incarnations. These are incarnations of God. The rest are demigods. So by worshipping demigods, you get limited temporary benefit. In fact, I have a friend, and this friend of mine is a great devotee of Lord Shiva. So he says, don't tell me to worship anybody else because Shiva has looked after me very nicely up till now. So I said, what do you mean by that? He said, look at me, I've got a wonderful house, I've got a wonderful Mercedes-Benz car, and I've got a great business that's going great guns, and I'm doing wonderfully, and all by worshipping Lord Shiva, and Shiva is supposed to be Ashutosh, he's one who is easily pleased. So he's easily pleased, and therefore I'm worshipping him and he's satisfying me. And he says, look at other people who claim to be worshippers of Lord Krishna. They aren't doing half as well as I am doing. He says, look at you. You're wasting so much time worshipping Lord Krishna. You aren't doing anything near like what I am doing. So why don't you worship Lord Shiva? So I tried to explain to him that in the Srimad Bhagavatam it has been declared that all people are divided into two groups. Those who worship Vishnu and his incarnations, or Krishna and his incarnations, are known as Devas. And those who worship God in the form of the demigods are known as Asuras. So if you worship Krishna or Vishnu as incarnations, you are a Deva. If you worship the demigods, you are known as an Asura. So he says, very nice. So you are a Deva and I have become Asura. So I said, look, I am not saying that. This is what Srimad Bhagavatam is saying. So he's saying, whoever is saying that, do you really expect me to digest it? So I said, look, who was the greatest devotee of Lord Shiva? So he scratched his head, he couldn't tell me. I said, the greatest devotee of Lord Shiva was none other than Ravan. Ravan was the greatest devotee of Lord Shiva. So Ravan performed so much sacrifice to satisfy Lord Shiva, and Lord Shiva actually gave him boon after boon after boon, and Ravan had Lanka, which was a city of gold. But did Ravan become a better person? Did Ravan become a better person by worshipping Lord Shiva, although he got all those material benefits? In fact, he became a worse person. He in fact tried to kidnap Parvati and enjoy her without Lord Shiva. This is what Ravan's mentality was. And eventually he kidnapped Sita, and then Lord came and killed him. So I said, the greatest devotee of Lord Shiva is Ravan. He got all that he wanted, but he became a demon. And this is what happens. That when you worship the demigods, they may satisfy you. But what happens is you don't become a better person, you become a demon. Or you take the example of Hiranyakashipu. Hiranyakashipu worshipped Brahma. By worship of Brahma, he got so many boons. He became very powerful. He even conquered most of the demigods. But Hiranyakashipu became a great demon as a result of those boons. And as a result of those boons, he became such a great demon that eventually what happened was that the Lord had to incarnate as Narasimhadev and actually kill him. So yes, you may get your material benefits, but what will happen is, along with the material benefits, you won't get purified. You will actually, in fact, get more and more demonical qualities. This is why they are called as Asuras. But you might well ask me now, that fine, I heard, I was quite impressed that you have to worship God without any material desire whatsoever. And it seems to be a wonderful ideal that I should ask him not even for freedom from cycle of birth and death. It sounds great. But now what am I supposed to do? I've got a heart which is full of material desire. Material desire is pouring out of both my ears. And now you are telling me I should worship the Lord without material desire. What happens to me then? The answer is that even if you worship Lord Krishna with material desire, there is no harm. Why do I say there is no harm? Because Lord Krishna can also fulfill material desire. But when he fulfills your material desire, he simultaneously purifies you. This example is given in the Srimad Bhagavatam of Dhruv Maharaj. Dhruv Maharaj, he wanted a kingdom greater than his father's. Because his stepmother put Dhruv from his father's lap and said, that you are not going to be the next king, my son will be, you better get out from here. So Dhruv, he went to the forest. Guided by his mother, he wanted to worship the Supreme Lord and get the boon, a material boon of a great kingdom. But when he went to the forest, he met Narad Muni on the way. So Narad Muni told him that, you should accept all things in life peacefully. You should not have material desire in your heart. So what did Dhruv Maharaj say? Dhruv Maharaj said, please spare me these lectures. Give these lectures to somebody else. I am brimming with material desire. You just tell me one thing, can Krishna fulfill my material desire, or he can't fulfill my material desire? So Narad Muni tells him, fine, yes, okay. You worship Krishna with material desire, no problem. So Dhruv Maharaj does just this. He worships the Lord full of material desire for a kingdom greater than his father's. And in the end, the Lord, being pleased with him, appears before him. So when he sees the Lord, what does he say? He is completely overwhelmed when he sees the Lord. And what does he say? He says, Sthan abhilashi tapaso sthito aham. He says, for desiring a material position, I worshipped you. For desiring a sthan. Sthan means a position of material prosperity, of ruling a kingdom. For that I worshipped you. Tapaso sthito aham. Tvam praptvan dev muni indra guyam. And you who are hidden to Indra and to the great munis, you have appeared before me. Kacham vichinvan api divya ratnam. Swamin kritharto asmi varam na yache. He says that I was looking for broken pieces of glass. And while looking for broken pieces of glass, I have now found a beautiful jewel. Now I don't want the broken pieces of glass. That means I was worshipping you with material desire. But now that I have obtained you, I no longer want that material desire. I have obtained you, that is sufficient for me. I don't want anything more. This is the beauty of worshipping the Supreme Lord. That when you worship Him even with material desire, not only do you obtain your material desire, but simultaneously you get purified. You no longer have further material desire. It's like an itch. Actually, material desire is like an itch. You know what's an itch? Has anybody had any skin disease like eczema or an itch? There's a very severe itch, so you go and you keep on scratching. So when you scratch, what happens? You get wonderful, delicious pleasure. When you scratch, you feel good. Wonderful, terrific. This is how you feel when you satisfy your material desire. You feel really good, great. But what happens? After some time, the itch starts again. And this time the itch is stronger and stronger and stronger. And so you scratch even harder this time. And the relief that you get is even greater. Wonderful. This feels like it. So you get wonderfully satisfied. But the itch becomes worse and worse and worse. And finally, because of repeated scratching, you get ulceration, you get infection, and you get severe pain. This is the eventual result. So material desire is like that. It's not satisfied by scratching. Now if you go to your friend and you ask him, I've got a very severe itch on my back where I cannot scratch. My dear friend, will you scratch me? So your friend will probably scratch your back. But suppose you come to a skin specialist and you tell the skin specialist, Doc, here's this itch on my back, will you please scratch me? You think the skin specialist will scratch your back? He's not going to scratch your back. What will he do? He will take an ointment and rub that on your back. And as a result of rubbing that ointment on your back, that itch will go away permanently. Not only will your itch be satisfied, but you will get no further itch again. So that is the difference between the demigods and Lord Krishna. When you go to Lord Krishna with your material desire, what he does is that he satisfies that material desire, but he satisfies it in such a way that you have no further material desire. He is like the skin specialist who puts the ointment and takes away the itch permanently. But if you worship the demigods, what is the philosophy of the demigods? You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. This is the philosophy. So actually you become a bigger and bigger demon. Therefore it has been mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Akamo sarva kamo va moksha kama udaradi tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param. So whether you are without desire, whether you are full of desire, or whether you desire liberation, in all circumstances worship only the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So have you understood the message of today's lecture? Have I been fairly clear in what I have said? Yes. Are there any questions? Anybody wants to ask me something? Yes?
Krishna took his incarnation in India.
Pardon?
Krishna took birth in India, and all his reincarnations are also in India almost. So why there is no reincarnation in China or Russia or other country?
So his question is that why Krishna has reincarnated only in India. Now first of all, the Vedic scriptures do not talk only of India. I mentioned that you didn't come yesterday, I believe. You must have missed the first day. So this is why I recommend that people should attend every day, because when you attend every day, then you know what I'm talking about. On the first day I mentioned very clearly that the Vedic scriptures talk about Bhugol, that is, they talk about the whole earth. They also talk about Saptadvip. Saptadvip means what? The 7 continents. And you have many examples in the Vedic scriptures of people who are rulers of Bhugol, who are rulers of Saptadvip. And actually the activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead take place not only over the whole earth, my dear friend, but they also take place all over the universe. So the activities of God are not confined to Bharat Bhumi. They are not even confined to the rest of the earth. He travels all over the universe, and his activities in the Srimad Bhagavatam, if you read it, will be found all over the universe, not only in the earth, or not only in India. But it is true that we talk about him more in India. Why do we talk about him more in India? Because India is called Bhakti Bhumi. It is the land where devotion is strongly entrenched. Of course, if you go to the West, if you go to America, that is Bhog Bhumi. That means you go there to enjoy. But when you come to India, that is Bhakti Bhumi, because right from the poorest to the richest, everybody has got that intrinsic desire to develop devotion and love of God. Therefore, he is more discussed here. But in actual fact, his activities and pastimes take place not only over the globe, not only over the earth, but all over the universe. Any other questions? Let somebody else have a chance. Yes? Anybody has any other questions?
This afternoon I was just now. Who is the equivalent of Indra and other Bhagavad, as you say? Who is the equivalent of Indra and other parts of Bhagavad, the soul of world?
I think this question is not in. For example, he is asking what is the role of Indra. Indra is not in Bhugol. Indra has got his own kingdom. That is the heavenly planets which are part of the material world. And material world means the heavenly planets are separate planets situated in the material world. They are not connected with the earth. The earth is one of the middle planets. Anybody else has got any questions connected with today's lecture about gods and demigods? Yes, is it about gods and demigods? Yes.
We all believe that Krishna is the incarnation of Vishnu, but you've shown some slide where you're showing that Krishna has taken the incarnation of himself.
Yes.
Can you explain that?
He is asking me that I always understood that Krishna was an incarnation of Vishnu, but you have shown in your slideshow that he is the source of Vishnu. So then why is he known as incarnation of Vishnu? It's very simple. For example, if you have an industrialist, suppose the industrialist has 100 factories all over India. And now he's got 100 factories all over India, and he goes maybe once in 5 years to visit a particular factory. So when he enters that particular factory, the workers will not recognize him. Do you agree with me? That when he enters that factory, the workers will not recognize him. So even the watchman will not let him into the factory, although he's the owner of that factory. So to prove his identity, he takes a gate pass from the manager of that factory. That means he is the owner of that factory, but to gain admittance over there, to be recognized by other people there, he has to actually take a gate pass from the manager of that factory. So also, Krishna is the source of the entire universe. But each separate universe, each solar system, each universe is actually managed by a separate Vishnu. There are different Vishnus in charge of different universes in the material hemisphere. And when he comes into this particular universe, he has to appear through Vishnu so that he may be recognized as God himself. So although he is the source of Vishnu, when he incarnates here, he comes through Vishnu who is in charge of this universe. Is it clear? This is not my own story. This is found in the Srimad Bhagavatam. I also gave you a Sanskrit verse to prove that. It is said, Ete chaunsa kala punsa krishnastu bhagwan swayam indrari vyakulam loke mridayante yoge yoge. That Actually, of all the forms of God, Krishna is the original form from which all other forms come. This is what is mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam. In fact, Srimad Bhagavatam begins like this. It says, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. It calls upon Vasudevaya, that is the son of Vasudev, Krishna. And he says, Janmadi Asyato Anvayat Itaras Charthesva Abhignyaswarat. He is talking about God who has been existing, Vasudev, son of Krishna, son of Vasudev, who has been existing before everybody else. So now we'll have a break for Prashadam. I think he wants to make an announcement, so we can have that in questions for the audience. Anybody else has any questions? Yes? One more question.
I agree that you said Krishna is a super god. But when he is a super god, what was the need of other god and other dummy gods? He could have eradicated them. No? But now there is a confusion of whom to pray and what to do.
So his question is a very valid question. He says that if Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead, what was the need to create the demigods? Because by creating the demigods, now he has created a lot of confusion in my mind because I don't know whom to worship. So it has actually been said that where is there disturbance? There is disturbance where there is ignorance. When ignorance is removed, then there is no more disturbance. So Krishna has created the demigods for fulfilling a specific purpose. And that specific purpose is fulfilling the material necessities of those people who want to continue to remain here. So if you don't want to be delivered from the cycle of birth and death, if you want to continue remaining on this earth, then you please worship the demigods. You will nourish the demigods will nourish you in turn, and in this way both of you shall be happy. This is mentioned in the third chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. In the third chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Karma Yoga, he talks that in the beginning of creation, I created demigods, sacrifice and human beings, saying that by the performance of sacrifice you shall nourish the demigods, and the demigods by the production of rain shall nourish you, and in this way you shall nourish each other and remain happily here. So those people who want to remain permanently over here, they can worship the demigods and they will be happy and satisfied here. I'll give you an example little later on when you attend the lecture on karma. In the lecture on karma, I will show you that this material world is a prison house. And in the prison house, there's a warden who looks after the people in the prison. The demigods are the wardens of the prison house. So you want to remain in the prison, fine, suck up to the warden. But if you want to get out of the prison, you have to petition the governor. The warden can't let you out. But you will understand that later when I do the lecture on why bad things happen to good people. So you'll have to hold on until then. Anybody else? Yeah. But you'll... This is about today's lecture? Gods and demigods? Yeah.
That's all that you have said. Only one thing intrigues me is that in Hindu culture we are told that for anything we should first remember Ganesha, and we always say Sri Ganesha Namah first and Sri Krishnarpanam Mastu at the end. And is there any significance of this?
Actually, Ganesh is one of the demigods who acquires a very unique position in the Hindu pantheon. And this is because he is a god of auspiciousness. As you might have seen on the video show, the verse that talks about Ganesh mentions that Ganesh derives his potency from the Lord whom he carries on his tusks. But even Ganesh occupies a wonderful position because Ganesh is actually the scribe who has written the Bhagavad Gita. If you know something about Mahabharata, you will know that when Ved Vyas was asked to recite the Mahabharata, he wanted a scribe who would write it down. And the scribe who was selected to write down the Mahabharata, who was selected to write down the Bhagavad Gita, was none other than Ganesh himself. So although Ganesh is a demigod, he occupies a unique position because as a perfected individual, as a perfected demigod, he is a great devotee of Lord Krishna. And he is the person through whose pen has come the Bhagavad Gita. Look, don't get me wrong. I am not telling you that you should disrespect the demigods. I never said anything like that. It is mentioned Deva Dvijya Guru Prajna, that you should worship the demigods, you should worship your elders, you should also worship your spiritual superiors. This is mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita. that yes, you must offer respects to the demigods. I am not saying that you should not offer respects to them. What to speak of demigods? I am willing to offer respects to an ant. Don't disrespect anybody. But you should understand their relative position. That Krishna is the supreme and they occupy unique different positions in the pantheon. That everybody has got their own specific purpose. That if you are serious about spiritual life, if you want to get out of the cycle of birth and death, then you have to worship Lord Krishna. For those who want to continue in the material world, they have to worship the demigods. Because Ganesh is a symbol of auspiciousness. Therefore, by worshipping Ganesh, we bring on auspiciousness. But what does a devotee of God have to do with auspiciousness? For the devotee of God, he sees everything as perfect. There is nothing inauspicious, there is nothing auspicious. It is mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita, na rishyati na dveshati, na sochati na kankshati, shubha ashubha parityagi, yomad bhakta samaya priya. He says the devotee of God, he doesn't rejoice, neither does he cry. He doesn't hanker, neither does he lament. For him, nothing is auspicious, nothing for him is inauspicious. So where does Ganesh come in? Ganesh comes in to those who are bound by duality, who have auspiciousness, inauspiciousness, happiness and sorrow, good and bad, heat and cold, honor and dishonor. Those who are interested in the material world, they require auspiciousness. But one who is a devotee of God, he sees everything as perfect. Om Purnam Ada Purnam Idam Purnat Purnam Udachyate Purnasya Purnam Adaya Purnam Eva Shishyate. That God is perfect and complete, His world is perfect and complete, therefore everything is auspicious. There is nothing that is inauspicious. But those who see inauspiciousness, they invoke Ganesh to bring upon auspiciousness. But the idea of Bhagavad Gita is that you are supposed to transcend the dualities of material nature. You are supposed to reach a spiritual platform where there is no duality, where everything is perfect and complete, and where you see perfection all around you because you see God all around you. Does it answer your question? So now we'll have a break for Prasadam. Thank you so much. Tomorrow's lecture will be on who am I. Now we've got a small introduction about does God exist and importance of scripture, and today we have done who is God. Now tomorrow we are going to do who am I. You better know who you are. It's okay to know God, but unless you know who you are, you won't know what your relationship with God is. So tomorrow's lecture is very, very important. In fact, I say that tomorrow, the day after that and the day after that form the sandwich for the next 3 days, and then you have the last slice of bread. So the next 3 days are very important. Don't miss them no matter what happens. And if any of your friends have missed the first 2 days, doesn't matter, you bring them along for the next 3 days. Thank you.